Okay. The board met tonight in executive session. We're now ready to begin the regular meeting, regular portion of our meeting. We had only one piece of correspondence to the board since our last meeting on April 4th, and that was from a Brian Jenkins, whom I subsequently found out was a non-resident, who has mailed our Board of Ed and other boards of ed, and also I think the State Board of Ed, to suggest a new school holiday. So I referred that to Mr. Phillips, and I don't believe that the holiday that he described will be on our agenda anytime soon. And that was the one piece of public correspondence. In the President's report, we had some sad news. Former board member George Kirsch died. Some of you may have known George. He was a college professor. He was, his specialty was the history of sports in the U.S., and he had written several books on that subject. He was first elected to the board in 2000 and was just an excellent board member. He and his wife Susan lived on Ridgewood Avenue in Glen Ridge, and his son Adam, I believe, graduated in the amazing class of 1999. Yes, Winnie? And he was a wonderful, thoughtful, scholarly board member and participated in the board during some very tumultuous times. So our thoughts go out to his son Adam. His wife Susan predeceased George, but his son Adam lives in California, and our thoughts are with him. Other than that, the legislature is contemplating the state budget, so that means they're not doing much else except generating publicity about various issues. I wanted to just, there has been a lot of publicity about the health and PE standards, and I wanted to mention the State Board of Education, which is our counterpart at the state level. They are appointed, there are 13 of them. They are appointed by the governor for terms of 6 years, and they work on, they're policy setters also. They determine what goes into the administrative code. They approve standards and changes to standards. They meet once a month publicly, and any of you who are interested in the State Board of Ed and what they do with regard to standards and their other items of business can go on the New Jersey Department of Education website, which has a special header for the State Board of Ed. It's not a body that everyone knows about, but they are important in the scheme of things in terms of determining what all schools in the state do. So just a note about that, you'll hear about them periodically when an issue flares up, like the health and PE standards, and they are there. Nobody pays any attention until something hot comes up in the media. And that is the President's report. Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Betsy. First, happy to welcome back our representatives of Student Council to give us a high school report. Ryan O'Neill, Maggie Brown, and Colin Pennington. Come on up.
Neil, Executive Treasurer of the Student Council and Senior Class President.
And I'm Colin Pennington. I was most excited for 4 grades to celebrate together before heading off into spring break.
Other events that have been held in
Additionally, the History Club is preparing their end-of-year celebration with a party with presentations from historical figures. Teddy Roosevelt is rumored to be attending. Finally, the Advanced Student Arts Show is this Wednesday from 7 to 9 p.m. at the Women's Club. This is a great opportunity for the community to come out and see the amazing work of our talented art and photography students at GRHS. Admission to the art show is free. We have an excited few weeks ahead of us and are looking forward to closing out the last 2 months of school with some great student activities. As always, thank you for your time and your ongoing support for student activities. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you. This time I'm going to call up one of our Chinese teachers. We've had several students who were recognized for their involvement in national competitions. Ms. Shihong Zhang. Come on up. The first group we're going to recognize are 2 students. I'm not sure if Kara Walsh is able to make it, and Evan Rossi, who competed in the National Chinese Language Contest. Come on up, Evan. This is a national contest. Kara Walsh received honorable mention, and Evan finished second place in the national competition. So congratulations, Evan.
Excellent.
Thank you. The next group we're going to recognize is a new contest that we got involved in, a national song lyric writing contest, and we had 4 students recognized as winners of that contest. Isabella Goodman, come on up. Winnie Lynn, Levy Wolford, and Sophia Morzinski. They wrote a song, which was picked as the top song, and now it will be produced professionally, and a music video will be made out of it. So they're going to have a lasting history of their work. Congratulations. And Ms. Zhang, I do want to recognize also on the agenda tonight is a potential contract with Rutgers University to offer dual credit for our AP Chinese students that you took the initiative to go out and reach out to them and create that opportunity for our students. So I thank you.
Many thanks. Excellent.
You're welcome. Thank you. Once it is produced and released, we will have it on the website. For a district report, I just want to mention that I was hoping to provide an overview of the strategic planning and special education work that we're going to do for next year, but unfortunately I wasn't able to meet with all the board committees because of the scheduling and some conflicts of getting committees together. So I will have that presented at the next board meeting, which is May 16th. I do want to talk a little bit about the pandemic and the COVID. For the most part, since mid-January, we've had an outstanding experience in all our school districts. We did see an uptake of COVID cases last week, which is not unusual when we come off of a break, that we do see an increase of cases. What we saw last week, I believe we had 22 cases throughout the district last week, which is just a fraction of what happened in December and less than what we were last April. So although we did see an uptake, it still wasn't as severe of the experiences we've had in the past. So we're continuing to monitor that, and I expect that our numbers in the next couple of weeks to reduce from what they were last week. Student Council mentioned a little bit about district events. I do want to talk about that. It's a sign that we're getting back to normal operations, and we do have a lot of events coming up. Music concerts, the Ridgewood Avenue Play, Legally Blonde Juniors coming up. Spring athletics are happening. Testing is starting, the New Jersey State Learning Assessments, and next week advanced placement testing occurs. We have orientation going on for our students who are transitioning into new buildings and for their parents. We have National Honor Society inductions coming up. As mentioned, Wednesday's the advanced art show for the high school, and that will be happening in the Women's Club. Saturday is the well-known pancake breakfast by the marching band, by the music parents. We have the Arts Festival happening in May. Next week is the Glen Ridge High School Athletic Hall of Fame inductions, which has been postponed for the last 2 years. So I just encourage everyone to make sure they're checking your school and district calendar for all the events. When I put some updates up, I will be including all these events for the remainder of the year so everyone's aware of them as much as possible. Our last event that or presentation tonight is our budget presentation. I do just want to speak briefly about our budget. I'm pleased that for the first time, I think, in my 7 years as superintendent, we are not cutting or reducing any positions, which is a terrific sign of where we are at. And we are adding 5 full-time positions. And this is from last year, based on last year's budget. We are adding 5 full-time positions, 6 part-time positions, and we're moving 3 positions from part-time to full-time. A few of those positions we already have because we needed them based on some special education requirements, so they were added based as the needs for certain students changed. But we also have, out of those new positions, we have 6 positions that will have responsibilities in multiple buildings. So a lot of our new positions are making sure that we're addressing district needs throughout all grade levels. So I'm going to turn it over to Barbara Murphy, our school business administrator, to present the 22-23 school budget.
Our tradition of excellence. As we create our budget, we consider our students' success. 99.3% of our students graduate. 97.4% of the class of 2021 graduates enroll in a 4-year institution. 70.7% of 11th and 12th graders are enrolled in advanced placement courses, and 102 students receive AP recognition. We are recognized by the national and state publications as a top performing high school, and our marching band won the Group 1 National Championship. Our budget timeline. Our Finance Committee and administration meets throughout the year to provide input and recommendations for the budget. In December, the building and department budgets are submitted for review, and the budget calendar with important dates is posted on our website. In March, the board approves the preliminary budget and is submitted to the county for approval. And the Finance Committee continues to meet and make recommendations to the budget. And tonight, the final 22-23 budget is presented and is on the agenda for the board to adopt. Our revenue, Our revenue history. So when we look at our history of state aid, we see that we've been gradually getting a little more each year. This year, we welcomed another increase in state aid, $326,520 more than the state aid we received in 21-22. Our tax levy increases have been stable between 2% and 2.5% over the last 5 years. For 22-23, we're proposing a 2% tax levy increase. The proposed budget is supported by $1,779,000 in budgeted fund balance. We will be withdrawing $1,350,000 from capital reserve to finance high school HVAC upgrades, which includes some classroom air conditioning. Our local tax levy will be $32,619,457, which represents a 2% increase over last year. We have a large increase in pre-K tuition revenues as our pre-K enrollment numbers are up significantly for next year. When we created the 21-22 budget, we were still running a half-day program due to COVID, and we were unsure of if we would have half-day or full day in 21-22. So we are back to full day, and our revenues reflect that increase in tuition. The increase is $478,000, and we will be using some of those funds to add another section of pre-K. Our miscellaneous revenues are up $70,000, and that's attributable to the rental agreement with our new daycare provider, AlphaBest. Our state aid increased by $326,000, and our total general fund budget year-over-year increase is 7.9%. But if we take out the $2 million high school HVAC project, our current expenses are up 3.5% year over year. Our tax levy revenue supports the majority of our budget at 84.2%. Our state aid makes up 5% of our budget, and our budgeted fund balance makes up 4.6% of our budget. A withdrawal from capital reserve represents 3.5% of our revenues. The tuition we receive accounts for 2.2% of our revenues. So appropriations, this chart compares the 21-22 budget to the 22-23 proposed budget, and it shows the percentage change. The salary increases are spread throughout the account lines. Regular ed instruction increases by 5.2%, and the new items that are included here are instructional software, part-time to full-time primary arts teacher, part-time to full-time primary phys ed teacher, a pre-K teacher, 2 classroom paraprofessionals, primary school technology support, and primary school team leaders. In the next line, we have special ed instruction increasing by 4.3%. That includes a part-time special ed teacher. Other instruction in co-curricular and athletics remain relatively steady. Tuition to out-of-district private schools for the disabled increased by 11%. Support services increases by 13.2% and includes supervisor of support services, a dyslexia screener tool, a one-on-one paraprofessional, a part-time occupational therapist, an applied behavior analyst specialist, and 2 registered behavior technicians. Administration increases by 3.4% and includes increased bandwidth of 1 gigabyte and a part-time technology assistant. Maintenance and operations increases by 2.3% and includes a part-time to full-time custodian at Central School. Transportation is relatively flat, and the cost of employee benefits is expected to decrease by 7%, which is mainly attributed to the district moving into the school employees' health benefit plan. Our capital outlay is increasing by $1.6 million as we will be using our capital reserve to upgrade our high school HVAC and add air conditioning to approximately 20 classrooms. Also included here are some restroom repairs. Our total general fund, including capital outlay increase, is 7.9%, but without the capital outlay, our general fund increase is up 3.5% over the current year. And our tax levy increase is 2%. Salaries and benefits make up 80% of our budget. This is common for New Jersey school districts. The salaries are spread throughout the pie and included as part of all of the categories with the exception of tuition and capital outlay and employee benefits. Regular ed instruction makes up 34% of our budget. Special ed instruction makes up 6.5%. Other instruction, 1%. Co-curriculars and athletics, 2.6%. Tuition to send our students to out-of-district placements is 5.6% of our budget. Support services is 10.2%. Administration, 10.1%. Maintenance and operations of our buildings, 7.4%. Transportation, 3%. Employee benefits, 14%. And capital outlay, 5.5%. So these are our 22-23 year-over-year budget increases. We have increased internet bandwidth for $69,000. We're doubling our bandwidth. We have instructional software for $20,000. A pre-K teacher, $85,000. That's salary and benefits. 2 pre-K classroom paraprofessionals, total of $50,000. 1 one-on-one paraprofessional, $25,000. 2 registered behavior technicians, $130,000. Part-time special education teacher, $39,000. Applied behavior analyst specialist, $101,000. 5 additional 6-period assignments, $31,570. Part-time occupational therapist, $50,400. Part-time to full-time custodian at Central School, $43,000. Part-time to full-time primary phys ed teacher, $48,814. Part-time to full-time elementary art teacher, $55,419. And a part-time technology assistant of $38,500. We also have primary schools technology support, $3,500. 3 primary team leaders, $3,000. Dyslexia screener, $4,200. Supervisor of student support services, salary and benefits, $134,000. Restroom upgrades, $41,759, and high school HVAC upgrades, $2 million. The cost to taxpayers. So the tax impact of the general fund tax levy on the average house assessed at $669,910 is projected to increase by $202.61 for the year, or $16.88 per month. We have incredible community support, and we are grateful for the support we receive from our community in both funding and hours of time donated. Our athletic teams and booster clubs support us with uniforms and supplies. The Glen Ridge Education Foundation generously donates funds for Orton Gillingham teacher certifications, a virtual high school, Heroes Workshop, and teacher grants. Our home and school associations are very active and have funded technology, furniture, outdoor classroom supplies, courtyard upgrades, assemblies, student activities, building improvements, and teaching supplements. Our Music Parents Association supports our music program and scholarships. We are fortunate to have many other community groups supporting us too, including Grace, Gaslamp, and the GRAA, and other private donations. We are grateful for the ongoing generosity and support from our community. Thank you for your support.
Thank you, Barbara. Before we go to public comment, board members, any questions from you, questions or comments? David.
Yeah, obviously, all it took to get a healthy budget with no cuts was to make me chair of the finance committee. So, I mean, if you know me, that's not just a joke, it's a total joke. The fact is that we are where we are because of a lot of really good decisions and tight administrative controls, but strategic decisions and management over the years. Obviously, we see the $500,000 in tuition from pre-K, which would not have been possible without the referendum, without Central School being there. So, Tim Keppel, Paul Romano, the people that spearheaded that effort deserve a lot of credit for our enjoying the benefits today. And then, managing capital reserve, our ability to cool this building with the capital reserve, again, I think Jeff Kobernick still hasn't completely taught me the capital reserve formula. So between Barbara and the folks that have been managing the district financially through these 7 to 10 years of having to make cuts and light state aid and the other financial stresses deserve a lot of credit for our ability to enjoy it now. So Barbara, thanks. That was great. She's behind the scenes, but really gets this done and makes it all understandable and digestible in a way that truly, an English major could even understand it. So thanks, Barbara, for that. Great job.
Thank you. Other questions or comments from the board? Heather.
Yeah, Dirk, I was hoping you could just expand for people why were the important positions to invest in and expand what we have?
So there's, if you look at the positions, that they're serving a variety of needs. One of them in our special education department, where we've had an audit and we saw some of our shortcomings, and we're trying to address those. And as some of our students' needs have increased and the number of students who are involved in those programs, we haven't been able to increase staffing. So this is really our first opportunity to do so. With Central School, there's a few positions as we were growing into the school and adding a grade level each year. We've come to the point where some of our shared staff were having trouble scheduling related arts. So as we're adding a couple more sections next year, we need to make sure that we're able to offer related arts to all our primary students on a regular basis. And there's a custodian who's also involved there. And we look at our tech support, who Winnie has done an amazing job over the last couple decades of keeping us up and running. And she's only had 2 individuals probably for the last 10, 15 years. And if you think of what we've increased as far as technology, being 1-to-1 in grades 6 through 12, almost every other classroom having their own Chromebook cards, number of wireless access points, the interactive whiteboards, and so forth and so forth. It's been a very a very trying time to manage all that that comes with increasing technology and not having the increased workforce to address that. So it was much overdue time for us to do something to help us winning out in that department. Mm-hmm.
Other board questions or comments? Anthony?
Barbara, I'm not sure if you mentioned this. I just wanted to find out what is the percentage of increase, if you knew, if you have that information, the tuition increase due to the switch to full-time as opposed to increased population.
I can tell you that it was COVID when we were building the 21-22 budget, and we had 52 students in pre-K, and now we have 82. And when we budgeted, we weren't sure whether we were coming back half-time or full-time, so we budgeted at 3/4 of a tuition, and now we see that we're back to full-time tuition. So as far as how much of each, I'd have to do the math, but we have higher enrollment now of 82 students compared to 52 when we were in COVID, and that's a big part of it.
Okay.
Other questions from the board? Okay, that being the case, it's time to open up for public comment on agenda items. If you have a public comment, please come up to the lectern, sign in on the sheet, identify yourself, confirm your Glen Ridge residency, and your affiliation if you have one. The time limit is 2 minutes, which I will measure on the stopwatch function of my phone. And please, if you have multiple questions or comments, please ask them all at one time, and then we will handle them in the order, hopefully in the order in which you ask them. So, does anyone have a public question or comment?
Good evening. My name is Charlie Breslin. I live on Sommer Avenue with 3 kids in the district. I just have questions. So if you don't mind, just what is the supervisor of intervention programs? I also am always interested to hear about the effect of salaries and benefits. And you said that there's 80% of our budget are salaries and benefits, but then there was a slide that it was benefits were 14%. So I just didn't understand if, well, I wasn't understanding it properly. And I think it's wonderful that you're able to reduce the amount of money that we're spending on salary and budget and benefits, but are some of these savings coming from more out-of-the-pocket expenses or any reduction in benefits which our staff has enjoyed before? And that's enough for today.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Barbara, do you want to address those? Or Dirk?
Yeah, not a problem. We'll start off with your first question, the supervisor of intervention. So when we had the special education audit, there was an overwhelming reference to just monitoring what we currently have in place, and which is difficult when as a small district, all our administrators are wearing a ton of hats with a lot on their plates, and so they're not always able to monitor all the programs that are available. And including that was really developing a better communication plan with parents who have students who might be struggling or might already be classified. So that position is going to allow us to monitor programs throughout the district. We're making sure it's a district level positions, whether it's monitoring the in-class support, the guidance programs, the IRS 504 programs that are happening throughout the district, but our reading specialists and our OG programs, but it's also going to include developing programs with in our special ed department as far as the academic development classes are currently in grades 6 through 12, developing a more comprehensive in-class support, team teaching models. So there's a lot that's going on that position. As far as, I'll talk a little bit about salaries, so maybe Barbara doesn't have to. That slide, I know that the benefits said 14%, but when you start looking at each category, there's multiple salaries involved in each category. So, co-curricular, that includes coaches and club advisor salary. As it's sprinkled throughout our budget, salaries and benefits, and that's where the roughly about 80 to 85% of our budget is allocated to. We did receive some savings from changing our health benefits, which every couple of years we will look at who's providing our benefits, and if we can find savings, we're always happy to take advantage of that. But we do not reduce the benefits the staff are receiving. That's part of the agreement we have with our Administrators Association and our Teacher Association. How'd I do? Thank you.
Okay, other questions or comments?
Hi, good evening. I'm Jody Hackmeyer. I teach English here at the high school. I'm going to do something that an English teacher doesn't normally do. I'm going to give you some numbers, so hang with me here. Of the 20 years I have been in Glen Ridge, I have taught 6 classes for 18 of those years. I have never once been asked if I wanted that 6th class. Admittedly, there have been years where, for financial reasons, I wanted the 6th class, but there have been many more where I would rather not have it. At a minimum, I would like to be asked for my preference. Why would I not want that 6th class? Because the amount of work required is frankly not worth the money we're being offered for it. A 6th class gives me, an English teacher, between 110 and 120 students. This year I have 110, last year 117. We have 2 planning periods per day, 84 minutes a day, 420 minutes per week to plan and grade. That doesn't include meeting with a counselor or a colleague, emailing, calling a parent, or just running to the restroom. That planning time of 420 minutes, 7 hours per week, gives me approximately 3.8 minutes a week per student for grading and planning. That would make it difficult to grade a short formative assessment for each student per week, much less a more involved essay or written response. By the way, I average about 10 minutes per essay, so 110 essays actually requires about 18 hours of grading time per week. More numbers. We're paid $6,314 for that 6th period assignment. This amounts to around $287 per paycheck, or $28 a day before taxes. If I did a year of class coverage where I wouldn't be expected to plan or grade at all, I would make significantly more than I get paid to teach another 20 students. GRHS's unprecedented over-reliance on the 6th period assignments, and I mean truly, I have never heard of any other districts close to our unbelievable 72% of staff having 6 periods, have been laid bare by the teacher shortage that has only begun, and by the ravaged staff morale that is seeming to worsen each passing year. Being constantly behind and overburdened puts stress on teachers and weakens the quality of what we can offer our students. I truly appreciate the recent plan of installing air conditioning in the high school. I understand that there is a real need for it, and I know that there will be days in June where I will be sweating through my clothing and maybe wondering why I made this request. But to see $2 million earmarked for air conditioning and nothing for additional staffing at the high school, not in the regular ed, I just listened to the budget report, is very difficult to hear. I know many of the negative aspects of education are out of your control right now. You can only do so much to protect us from the attacks we are seeing waged on teachers. But this is something you can do. You can reallocate these funds to give my colleagues all over the district more meaningful relief in terms of appropriate staffing. I respectfully and earnestly urge you to do so.
Thanks, Jody. Other questions or comments?
Can we just, so that Jody's comments aren't misunderstood by other people, can someone take a moment to explain the difference between what we're allowed to use for capital reserve and what we could possibly use to hire teachers? Because it's kind of important. Because if you think we could use that money to hire teachers, then, and anyone falls under that misimpression, then it could get, you know.
So if we have excess funds at the end of the year because things changed throughout the year since the time that we made the budget, we are allowed to put that money into capital reserve or maintenance reserve or emergency reserve. And those, there's very strict limitations on what you can use those funds for. So our money is in capital reserve. The other distinction is that it's $1,350,000 that is accumulated over several years, but it's not money that's going to repeat every year as would an increase in the tax levy. So it's one-time money. So if we hired teachers and spent all the $2 million this year, for example, on teachers, the next year we would have to let them go because the money's not there the following year.
Okay, other questions or comments?
Hi, Phil Johnson, 55 Chestnut Hill Place in Glen Ridge. Just following on Mrs. Hackmeyer's comments, I guess the question is, in the budget presentation, what percentage of teachers are being asked to teach 6 periods? We know we've lost teachers during the year, turnover in teachers, et cetera. How kind of close to the knife's edge are we in terms of ensuring we have adequate support in teachers throughout the entire year next year?
Well, I think in answer, were those all your questions?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. In answer to that, yes, we've seen volatility in our teaching staff, which is something that we are not used to here in Glen Ridge, but it is also something that is happening statewide and to some extent nationwide. You know, teacher prep programs are down 40%. The number of available teachers for any position at all is very small. So all districts in some way or other are close to that knife edge that you talked about. In terms of Glen Ridge in specific, maybe Dirk, you can address that.
It's difficult to say exactly where we are in the sense of how close to the edge. As you mentioned, we had 3 full-time positions that we weren't able to fill this year, which is 15 to 18 6-period assignments. If this personnel was available, that's relieving a lot of teachers at the high school of that 6-period assignment. So we're in the process of developing the schedule for next year, and that's something we're very cognizant of, and that as we create that schedule, we're going to try to limit 6 assignments as much as possible in case we have a similar situation next year where we have teachers go, not just resign, but go on leave for maternity leave for a few months, and we're not able to find a replacement because the shortage we're experiencing throughout the state. So we're trying to find different resources out there that could, if we're not able to find a replacement, is there outsourcing some teachers if that's a possibility. So that might mean tightening up schedules a little bit in the sense of that class size might get a little larger, or we're not able to offer maybe that some courses that we offered in the past because the number of students enrolled in them are beyond our minimum, under 10, let's say. So we're recognizing the issue. We're recognizing it's going to be a more of a long-term issue than a short-term, and we need to make some changes to adjust to where we are in this profession.
Thank you. Other questions or comments?
I wasn't planning on speaking, but just on the 6th period, we've been talking about this at these meetings for a couple years already, so it shouldn't be a surprise that we're coming to a tipping point on this. But my real question would be, the teacher contract is coming up again. So what if the teachers vote in the contract? We talked about this on their last contract, but what if they put a firm no on the amount of 6th period that teachers can have in the district in their next contract, and then we don't even have that kind of ability to use the teachers, because we've used up all that goodwill in these last 2 years with, I think it was 77 or 80-something% of teachers at the high school are teaching sixth period. And one other point also that wasn't mentioned in Ms. Hackmeyer's presentation was the time that some of those teachers need to work on 504 plans and IEP plans. Like if she's only given 3 minutes per student, that's not even enough time to read a 504 plan. So, you know, we've been discussing this for a while, but what happens if the teachers say that they don't want to do sixth period anymore and they voted out of their next contract? Thanks.
Well, we are, as you mentioned, Mr. Teron, we are in the midst of contract negotiations. They are nowhere, you know, we've started the process. We have not concluded the process. Certainly in our discussions thus far, the issue of sixth period stipends and sixth period assignments in general has come up. And we are very, as Dirk said, we are very cognizant of the fact that A, you're right, we've been discussing it for several contract cycles, and B, that we have to work hard to meet the needs of our students and meet the needs of our teachers. It's a rather complex problem, but it is part of our discussions. And maybe Dirk, you can address the other concerns.
I thought that was his concern was what are we going to do if the teacher said no in the contract, and you know, as you mentioned, it's an ongoing negotiation. So I'm not going to sit there and talk about the what ifs at this point. We have a lot to negotiate in front of us, and hopefully, we're through our next couple meetings, we're able to get closer to an agreement.
And I think the thing that people need to know about negotiations, and I've done quite a number of negotiations both with our teaching staff and our administrative staff, is that even though the process puts us on opposite sides of the table, at least metaphorically, we are trying to find the best solution for everyone. First and foremost for our students, for our staff, for our community. And that involves a balancing act, every single negotiation cycle, every single contract. But, and it is a complex process. So both sides have entered into the process with goodwill and are looking for a positive outcome. Mr. Teron, you've already had your moment.
It was just that the other questions that weren't answered.
Go ahead.
About how the teachers at the current levels of time, are they able to read 504 plans and IEP plans?
I'm sorry.
The amount of time. That was
I'm
just
sorry.
that
Sorry. Yes.
Again, that's a requirement as part of being a teacher, is make sure they're reviewing all student plans. You know, in Mrs. Hackmeyer's example, she's roughly 110 students. Obviously, not all those 110 students have plans, so when you start looking at an individual 3 minutes per student, not all of those students are requiring the 3 minutes. I think many teachers will also tell you that they're working beyond the contract time, and that's has become a part of the profession. I know teachers are dedicated educators, and they don't turn off their job you know, at 3:15 when the contract time ends. I'm sure if I walked at in the halls, I'd see Mrs. Hackmeyer in a room beyond 3:15, and which is greatly appreciated, not only from my standpoint, but certainly from her students.
Okay, other questions or comments? All right, as you know, we have a second public comment period for questions or comments on agenda or other items pertaining to the running of the schools. But right now, we will continue with the rest of our regular meeting. It is not the first meeting of the month, so we do not have committee and liaison reports unless someone has something that is time sensitive. Does anyone have a time sensitive item? No? All right. We will move along now to the minutes. All of you have in your packets the minutes of the meeting of April 4th, our last meeting, both executive session and regular session. Does anyone have any changes to those minutes? Okay, Michael, may I have a motion for the minutes, please?
Yeah, I'll move M1.
May I have a second?
Second.
Second from David. If there's obviously no discussion, Barbara, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bonnet?
Aye.
Mr. Campbell?
Aye.
Mr. DeLu?
Aye.
Ms. Gottlieb? Ms. Graham?
Aye.
Ms. O'Neill?
Aye.
Ms. St. Auburn?
Aye.
Dr. Yaris Ramos?
Aye.
Ms. Ginsburg?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, administrative items. David, would you move the administrative item?
I move A1.
May I have a second?
Second.
Second from Michael. Any comments or questions from board members before we go forward with this item? All right, Barbara, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bonnet?
Aye.
Mr. Campbell?
Aye.
Mr. DeLu?
Aye.
Ms. Gottlieb? Ms. Graham?
Aye.
Ms. O'Neill?
Aye.
Ms. St. Auburn?
Aye.
Dr. Yaris Ramos?
Aye.
Ms. Ginsburg?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Tracy, would you move the personnel items?
I move P1 through P7, which includes items on the addendum for P3 and P7.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Second from Anthony. In keeping with our rules and the board member code of ethics, all personnel-related items are discussed in executive session. So if no one has any objections, we will proceed to call the roll. Any issues?
Mr. Bonnet?
Aye.
Mr. Campbell?
Aye.
Mr. DeLu?
Aye.
Ms. Gottlieb? Ms. Graham?
Aye.
Ms. O'Neill?
Aye.
Ms. St. Auburn?
Aye.
Dr. Yaris Ramos?
Aye.
Ms. Ginsburg?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, Michael, would you move the curriculum items?
Yes, I'll move C1 and C2.
All right, may I have a second?
Second.
Second from Heather. Any discussion on these field trips or the school bus evacuation drill? Barbara, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bonnet?
Aye.
Mr. Campbell?
Aye.
Mr. DeLu?
Aye.
Ms. Gottlieb?
Aye.
Ms. Graham?
Aye.
Ms. O'Neill?
Aye.
Ms. St. Auburn?
Aye.
Dr. Yaris Ramos?
Aye.
Ms. Ginsburg?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right. David, the biggest item on our agenda tonight, would you move the business items?
I move B1 through B12.
May I have a second?
I'll second. Duval.
Second from Duval. Thank you. Does anyone have any other thoughts on the budget before we go forward, or any other of the business items? All right. Barbara, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bonnet?
Aye.
Mr. Campbell?
Aye.
Mr. DeLu? Ms. Gottlieb? Ms. Graham?
Aye.
Ms. O'Neill?
Aye.
Ms. St. Auburn?
Aye.
Dr. Yaris Ramos?
Aye.
Ms. Ginsburg?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, we've reached the second public comment period. The same protocols apply, so please, if you have a question or comment, step up to the lectern.
Hi, I was just curious on the new position that we have coming in for the, it was originally scheduled as like Assistant Student Services, but the name got changed. And it looks like the reporting is to the principals and to Dirk and not to the Student Service Director. And also it's a 10.5-month-a-year job. I was curious about those two items on that job.
Certainly. It's reporting directly to the principal because they're going to be stationed at the high school, being that this has the high school has a highest student population, roughly about half the students in the district, including the number of classified students, the number of child study team members. So it made sense that in order for more of a daily monitoring of this position, especially since it's new, that we had a building principal overseeing that position. Every position falls under me, so that was just added just as part of the developmental development of the new position. They are going to be working on both aspects of regular ed and special education. We're looking at district programming from in-class support services, 504s, IRS, child study team, academic development. So they're going to have a variety of responsibilities, and they will be going to a number of buildings, to all the buildings as part of their role, including providing a lot, professional development for our staff members on topics that were raised in the special education audit.
But certainly that individual will interact with Dr. DeWitt, yes?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Which was, I'm sorry. Oh, 10 and a half months. Because it's a supervisory position, they're going to be mirroring the teacher schedule like most supervisors in other districts. We've extended it beyond the school year and before the school year to help us prepare for tasks that are related to closing out the school year and starting the school year.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, if that is the case, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Moved by David, may I have a second? Second from Michael. Thank you all.